Now, this is a standard use of form elements. We're going to go a little bit deeper into the concept of form elements and use them in a slightly different way than as a tool for collecting data. These here are something that when I go to preview mode, I can type in pies. If I want to, I can type in cakes. And it will collect that information and deliver it back to whoever sent the form out in the first place. Instead of just doing that, though, I'm going to use form elements differently. First, I'll scroll to the top of the document, and I'm going to choose the button tool. And I'm just going to place a button in the document up here. Now, it's an awfully large button, and I understand that, and I'm doing it on purpose. It's actually not large enough. In fact, what's nice about the Properties dialog box is that I can still edit the size of the button. And so I'll first edit it to make it so that it fills the width of the page. The second thing that I'm going to want to do is name it. So in this case, I'll name it Logo. And I'm going to reset the appearance of the button because I don't want it to have a fill color. So I'll turn that off by selecting No Color. And I don't want it to have a border color either, so I'm going to leave that off. The option for this button that I'm going to choose is to give it a label, and I'm not actually going to give it a text label. I'm instead going to choose an icon. So I'll select Icon Only. Also, for the behavior of the button, I don't want there to be an invert or a push or an outline. I just want to set the behavior of the button to none, although that's not going to be necessary because before I add the icon, I'll jump back over here to General and I'll show you that I'm going to set this button to be read-only. Back to my options. For my icon, I want to choose a file to use for the icon. I'll click on it, and in the Lesson 2 folder, which is in Part 2 of the project files that you loaded onto your desktop, you'll find a file named logo.pdf. It's this file here. I'll click OK. You can see that Acrobat added it to this button as an icon. Now let me stop for a moment and explain why I'm building this button, because the settings that I choose will become clear once I tell you what we're doing here. This is a PDF file that, when printed, is going to be printed on company letterhead. That company letterhead already has the logo on it. What I want to produce is a PDF file where I can see the logo as I'm filling in the shipping memo. That's good for branding purposes. It's also good so that the person understands the file that they're working with. It's the memo. It looks like the printed version of the memo, so everything is going to match. However, when I print this document, I don't want this logo to print. I'm going to print it on pre-printed company letterhead. And in fact, I'm going to print it on an inexpensive black and white laser printer, and I don't want to have to create a version of this that's black and white because it won't look good. That's why I'm going to use pre-printed master sheets in that printer. This document is something that when I print, I don't want this logo to print. To achieve that effect, I've created a button, I've applied a logo to it, which is a quick little way to add a graphic to a PDF file. To prevent the logo from printing, I'm going to come over to my General tab again, and I'm going to set that the form field is visible but doesn't print. Read-only makes it so that I can't click on the button, and what I've created is essentially a graphic element in the document that will be visible when the user's filling the document in, will not be visible when the document is printed. Instead, it will be replaced by whatever's on the pre-printed master. It's kind of a neat little technique that I use with customers when they want to create an electronic version of a file that they then are going to print on pre-printed masters. Plus, it's also a quick little way to add a graphic to a file that didn't exist before. Now, I want to return to options because I want to talk a little bit about sizing the logo. First off, if I resize the button, notice that the logo becomes larger. Acrobat will fill the button with my logo and center it unless I click Advanced and do something different. So for example, I can tell it never to scale, which is probably a bad idea because the icon may be too large or too small for this given space. So I'm always going to allow it to scale, but I want to make sure that I scale it proportionally. If I scale it non-proportionally, I'll click OK and you can see the effect. That doesn't look as good as I'm hoping it will look, so I'll return to Advanced and tell it to scale proportionally. The other thing that I can do, and I'll click OK just to reset that view, the other thing that I can do is move the logo within the button so that it's not centered within the area that I've defined by creating the button. Again, that's not something that I want to do here, but it gives me a little bit of flexibility with respect to placing the graphic that I'm using the button to put on the page. I'll click Advanced. I'm going to click Reset to very quickly return this to center and click OK, and you can see that the logo has returned to the center of the button. Now I'm finished with this. I can close it, and now to test it, I'm going to enter the preview mode by clicking this preview mode button here on the toolbar. And the thing that I'm testing is to make sure that the button isn't active somehow. If I attempt to click on this button, nothing happens. So for all intents and purposes, your end user is not going to know there's a button there. And the second thing that I want to preview is, does it work the way I'm hoping it will work? And the best way to do that is to choose File Print, because in the print dialog box I can see a preview and notice that the button is not visible, which means that it's not going to print something on top of the logo that's already on the pre-printed master. So it's working. Now I don't need to print this, so I'll hit cancel. I was just previewing it, and it works.